Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. And of course, if you're new here, thank you so much for tuning in. I feel like it's been a little bit since I've done an actual eyeshadow palette review, so today we are going to be talking about the fairly new Natasha Denona Glam eyeshadow palette. I feel like when this palette first came out, I knew I wanted it. I don't know why it took me so long to get it. I finally took the plunge. It's just a little outside of my comfort zone price-wise, even though this palette is one of the more affordable Natasha Denona palettes. So with that being said, yes, this palette was $65, and as you can already see, I do already have my eye makeup on, and that is because I already went ahead and played with this. I had to dive right in, how could you not? So this video is going to be a little bit different than my normal eyeshadow palette reviews. So a little breakdown of how this video is going to go. I am going to go ahead and overall review the palette. I am going to go ahead and discuss all the different shades, the shade names, and I am, of course, without further ado, I am going to go ahead and show you guys some swatches of these shades. And do not worry, I did pre-film myself actually applying the eyeshadow, so you still will be able to see how these eyeshadows actually performed. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Okay, so I do want to go ahead and start up by saying this is my very first Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette. It definitely feels like a high-end eyeshadow palette. I was gonna be a little bit bummed if I paid $65 for a chintzy packaging, so I definitely was not let down in that department. Opening up the shadow, so you have 15 eyeshadows in this eyeshadow palette, and across the board these shades are all stunning. I don't think I can pick out one shade in this palette that I do not like. I love every single one of them, and while so many people can think neutral tones are so boring or this or that, and I think what was all the rave about this palette is because yes, it is all neutrals, but we've been so overwhelmed with very warm neutrals lately. This palette is actually a cool toned palette. So this palette has 5 different matte shades in here, again all neutral shades. The other 10 shades of course are metallic. This is a glam palette, but I do think there is a really good mix between light, dark, and medium. I truly do think there is going to be so many endless looks that I'm able to create with this palette, so definitely worth the $65. And I'm actually just gonna go ahead and swatch these for you guys so you guys can actually see the color payoff. So as you can see, there is still a mix between warm and cool, and I ran out of room, so this is just the first 10 shades, the first 2 rows, and then on my hand we have that very last row, the last 5 shades there. And again, these are the warmer shades, but again, as you can see, there is a blend between cool and warm, so I feel like this is a very versatile palette. Okay, and going into the actual shade names, I didn't think I was gonna be a fan of how these actual shades were labeled, but I guess at the end of the day, do we all really pay attention to the actual names of the shades? No. But going into the actual names, like I said, a couple of these, yes, a couple have the same name. A couple of these are labeled center eyelid. You have a couple outer eyelids, inner corners, yada yada yada. You even have one labeled lash line. So I mean, at the end of the day, if you need a step-by-step guide on how to apply your eyeshadow, I feel like that can be very helpful. And in actuality, there's no right or wrong way to apply your makeup. You honestly just apply it the way you like it and what works for you, because everyone has a different shaped eye. Take me for example, I have a little bit more squintier, smaller eyes, and I do have hooded eyelids. So for me, I apply my eyeshadow a little bit different than someone who doesn't have hooded eyes. So with that being said, at the end of the day, apply your eyeshadow the way you want it, but I do think it is a little helpful that they did name these. Would I have liked to see them named something different? Absolutely, but beggars can't be choosers. This palette is beyond gorgeous, and even though I'm not a fan of the names, I honestly can't complain. And another thing that's so great about this palette, I swear I can go on and on and on, even though these are in this particular order, on the back of this actual palette you will see these little pinholes, so you can take a little pin and pop out your shades, and you can actually rearrange these in whatever order you want. So even though some of these are labeled center eyelid, if you don't, let's say, want this one as a center eyelid shade, you can swap it out with something else. So this palette is very versatile in functionality and in the shade range. But moving on, I'm actually gonna go ahead and show you guys which shades I use on my eyelids today. So the first thing that I did, I took this first shade labeled Transition. It was kind of close to my eyelid shade, so I took that and kind of just used that as a base for my eyelid. You don't have to do that, but I did use eyeshadow primer, so I kind of just used this shade to go ahead and set my eyeshadow primer. And even though I didn't know what kind of look I wanted to create, I did know I wanted to have some definition in my eye, so I took a little bit bit of a deeper tone, not too deep, but I took the shade right here in Smoke. And this is a little bit of a warmer tone in this palette, but I went ahead and just used it to create a little bit of definition for this look. I know a lot of matte shades can create some fallout, so I was actually super surprised that this did not create any fallout on my eyes. And of course I had to dive right into a shimmer shade. So I actually used my finger because I always like to use my finger when I apply metallic shades. So I just took my finger and I went into the shade Center Eyelid. Going against the rules, I did not use it in my center eyelid. I actually used this on the outer parts of my eyelid. And while I know a lot of metallic shades have amazing payoff, I still was surprised that this had such an amazing color payoff. And a lot of metallic shades can go on a little patchy, especially with matte shades underneath it, but this had no patching whatsoever. And then what I did, I wanted to get a nice brighter inner corner look, so I took my finger again because I wanted to go in with another metallic shade. I went in with this shade Inner Corner and I just packed that on my inner corner, and I was really liking the way that looked, so I took a smaller brush and I kind of dabbled that in and kind of brought it down towards the inner of my eye, towards the very bottom, kind of creating some kind of definition and highlight for my eye. I just love the way that looks all together. I like creating a focal point, a nice highlight towards that inner eye. And I just took my fluffy brush again and I went into the shade Crease. I used that to kind of blend out that center eyelid shade that I use on my outer corner. And I actually took that fluffy brush and kind of just brought that down and created kind of like this sultry look without being too much. And then you know I had to do it. I had to pop on some lashes to complete this glam look. How can you have a glam look without some falsies? And that's how I created this look today. But truly, like I said, this palette, you can create so many gorgeous looks from this. Whether you just want to use matte shades, you don't even have to use metallics. I feel like you can still get a really, really nice glam neutral everyday look with this. And it only took me a few shades to create a nice glam look. Super easy. I feel like it's very user-friendly. Anyone can use this palette to create so many different looks. Definitely worth the $65, and now that I've used Natasha Denona eyeshadows, I think your girl is hooked. So if you're like me, sitting at home right now in your pajamas, drinking some wine, and you're kind of on the fence of why or why not you should or should not buy this palette, that's what I did. I watched handfuls of videos. I think I was honestly trying to find a reason not to buy this palette, but all I could find was good reviews. This is your sign to go buy this palette. This palette is definitely worth it. Oh, and this was just so fun to sit down and film this little review for you guys. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a big old thumbs up. And if you want to see more, go ahead and just subscribe below. It's just right down there. And as always, guys, I'll see you next time.